I was on a podcast the other day, and this interviewer asked me a question. She said, "What about for those widows who just feel like traveling is too hard right now? It's completely outside of their realm of possibility in their mind." And that's such a good question because I think at the beginning, most people sort of feel that way. Like they're just getting through the day and managing and traveling. Like, why would they even think about travel? Today, I just want to discuss that. How do you take those tiny little steps to get to a place where it feels doable to go for a night away or a weekend away or a road trip or even get on an airplane? So I'm going to just give you 3 small steps that I think maybe could be helpful. If you're in that place of feeling like traveling is too hard and overwhelming, you don't even want to think about it, but maybe someday you'd like to, or you'd like some help getting to that place where it could be a possibility. When I think back to my very early days of widowhood, the first trip I took outside of my house wasn't some big road trip across the country. That was kind of the first big thing I did. But before that, in the weeks right after Mike died, I did something smaller. Some of my family had come into town to be there with us and support us. It was a beautiful day in May, the sun was shining, and there was something inside of me that just wanted to be outside, but the weather was good. I asked if we could all go to a park and throw the frisbee around. It was not some big trip, but it was the first time I was actually leaving the confines of my house to go do something. We drove like 4 blocks away, went to the park, threw the frisbee, and I was standing there outside thinking, this is so weird. And also it was like a little bit fun, but fun's not the right word because it just wasn't. But it was something outside of the house. And when I came home from that, I remember totally breaking down because this was just a few days after Mike had died, and in my heart, he was at home waiting for us. So when I walked in the door and he still wasn't there was something very unsettling about that, and it just caused me to totally break down. When I look back on that moment, I think it sort of mentally prepared me a little bit for what it would be like to come back home every time I left. I knew that I would have to deal with that reality of him not being there when I walked in the door, even though in my heart it felt like he was there. Then when I was ready to go a little bit further away, I knew what to expect when I came home. So those are the kind of tiny steps we're talking about today. Nothing big or earth-shattering, just the small little steps that might get you to a place of actually feeling like you can do something that would be considered travel. If you are interested in the guide that I've put together to help encourage you and give you some tips about actually traveling, if you're more at that step, then the link is down below. I call it the Rediscover the Joy of Travel as a Widow, and I would love to give it to you. It's just some of the things that I've learned in the last 6 years of living with grief and travel as a means of healing. If in your mind you're thinking, I've seen other widows traveling, I should be able to do this, but I just cannot fathom making the 57 decisions it takes to actually put a trip together and carry it out, and like, would I do that by myself or bring people along? And then it's just kind of like, no. Widow brain is real, that sense of overwhelm is real, and there's nothing wrong with that thought process. I think most people are there at some point. I will say maybe traveling as a widow might not feel like a vacation for a little while, but it does something different. It gives your nervous system, your mindset, an opportunity to sort of reset, to step outside of the normal grief circles that you're living in. And it gives you an opportunity to add in some new memories to the reel of old ones that you're constantly reliving in your mind. When I was freshly widowed, I know all I could think about all the time was our life before Mike died, right? I didn't want to let go of any of those memories, so they were just constantly cycling in my head. But it is important to also continue to build new memories into that movie that's playing in your head so that you don't get stuck totally in the past, right? But that you can weave in some good, beautiful, wonderful experiences. It's kind of all part of the rebuilding process, whether you want to call it rebuilding joy or rebuilding your life or stability or whatever it is. You have to rebuild your life. You need to take some steps towards doing that. So let's get really practical and talk about some of those little steps to get there. We're going to look at this kind of like a 3-prong ladder. Tiny little steps that you can take one at a time to increase your stamina for getting out of your comfort zone. The first rung, we're just going to call a practice outing. Maybe it's something just like the frisbee trip I did. Let's call it 2 hours away from your actual house. Maybe to go do something that you would generally consider enjoyable. So for me, it was that frisbee outing. Maybe it's taking a walk on the beach. Maybe it's going to the woods. I'm sure you have some things in your life that you normally do for fun. Just pick one of those. It's going to feel completely different, but just step out, do the thing for a few hours, and come home. That's just step number 1. Get your body and your mind used to what it might feel like to go out alone. The goal is not to have the best time ever, because that's not going to happen. The goal is to practice leaving and then practice coming back so you know what that feels like. And it might be a good idea if you're looking at your first time doing something like that to set up like a little cushion for yourself when you get home. So maybe that's ordering food to be there when you're ready so you don't have to cook when you get home, or texting a friend and saying, hey, can I text you and let you know when I get home just so I have somebody to tell, or leaving a lamp on at home so you're not walking into a dark house. They sound like small little things, but like giving yourself that cushion, and then also the knowledge that I might totally break down when I walk back in the door, at least then you know what to expect. Okay, so the second rung would be a one-night local stay. So when I did this, I did it by myself. It was my birthday, and I just felt like I could use a night by myself. So thankfully, my parents took the kids. I booked a hotel night for myself in downtown Chicago. As soon as I got there, I started calling friends because I was like, I don't want to be here alone. What am I doing here alone? He should be with me. This is silly. And I basically called a bunch of people to be like, can anybody come meet me and walk on the beach with me? And they couldn't. Nobody could in such late notice, which is understandable. So I learned some things that night. I learned I didn't want to be traveling alone. And then I was sort of forced into being alone, and I realized that it was kind of nice because I was able to just feel all of the emotions and cry and do whatever I needed to do without anybody else really knowing. So even though it wasn't what I wanted or what I planned, it still ended up being beneficial for me. The point of this rung is really just to feel what it's like to step out of your house for a night, to experience that do I want to be alone or not kind of thing, to practice packing to go somewhere else. And then again, you'll have that experience of coming back home after being away a little bit longer. And then twofold is if you have kids, there's something that I felt was really important, and that was for them to know that I could go away and I would come back. Because that was not their experience with their dad, unfortunately. When he left, the last time they saw them, he just didn't. And I wanted to teach them and to show them that as their mom, I could step away for a night and that I would be back the next day. And I needed to build that into them frequently, not always with an overnight. Sometimes it was just play dates or going to the grocery store or whatever. But I needed to constantly remind them that I would be back. The third and final rung in that journey to actually taking something that might resemble travel or a vacation is to do a 2 or 3 night stay with one anchor activity, one goal. An example of this for me was that we had friends on the East Coast. They're very good friends. The place was very familiar, and I really needed to be with other adults, and I needed for the kids to have something to do. We flew out, we spent a few nights, we had that time together, and then we came home. Maybe for you, you just need to get to the beach because that is where your heart feels peace. So you can just plan a 2-night stay or a 3-night stay at some hotel or resort or town, or maybe it's a lake house, just something that feels familiar, comfortable, and like you're able to achieve a goal and then come back. What that does is it's going to empower you to realize like you are actually capable of doing this. Going to give you a positive experience to look forward to, and then a positive experience to have accomplished once you're finished. And it's going to build positive memories for you or for you and your kids. Of course, you can feel free to bring somebody along or meet somebody there or ask somebody to be a part of that experience with you. You don't have to do it alone. But just the experience of going and coming back and accomplishing that is going to do a lot for your confidence. Just remember that in these early days and on these early trips, there's gonna be grief along with you, of course. You're in major survival mode for a while, and it is gonna feel very strange to even be on these trips without your person. So plan in some time for that. One of the biggest things and pieces of advice that I give to people who are just starting to travel, especially with their kids, is to lower your expectations. You really need to plan in some downtime for them and for yourself. I would say like one big activity a day, maybe an activity and dinner or something, but plan downtime in the middle of the day. Plan everywhere you go to allow yourself time to feel the things and to cry and to reflect. What you're doing is big and it's hard. Allow yourself the opportunity to experience all of that. Obviously, travel has become a huge part of my life and my grief journey. That does not need to be your story. But I am pretty sure at some point you're going to want to go visit family or friends or go on a vacation because everybody does. and you really probably could use it more than your average person. It doesn't need to become a huge part of your life. I just hope that this is helpful. I also want to remind you about the guide that I have linked below. It's called Rediscover the Joy of Travel as a Widow. I think it'll be helpful as you navigate all of these things and start to maybe push your boundaries and get out there and rebuild your life. If you are interested in traveling more and experiencing more and thinking about how to do it on a budget, check out my channel. There are a lot of helpful videos where I am trying to teach you as much as I can about how to make this a visible part of your life. So like and subscribe so you can follow along as we continue to talk travel and widowhood. See you next week.